I think the topic of today is we're going to talk about judgment and our beliefs. I myself personally, from the time I was very little, felt like that I could not be in heaven if there was someone left behind burning in hell. And I do believe that I read something very similar in the new book of Islam. So I'm not quite sure about that, but there's always been a division on is there judgment, is there not judgment. Another point now is that now that I'm studying comparative religions, and I truly believe with all my heart that we are all one, and if we are all one, then who are we judging? I mean, we would only be judging ourselves. So that's so many of us have a different perception of does God judge us at the end? Is there a big judgment day, or are we here to learn? Recently I had an encounter with a friend of mine who was a Catholic nun, and she said that she had just spoken with several people who had crossed over and actually come back, and one of her encounters was with a person who said that they found themselves in judgment, but it wasn't like what they thought it was going to be, and instead of saying all the things that you did wrong, they were told all the things that they did right. And this very religious woman said that she thought it made it a lot more sense to her that if we were entering into heaven, we would not be going in shame, but we were going in being proud of the things that we did right. To me, that sort of falls in line with karma, because I believe that we just keep coming around in lifetimes until we learn our lesson, and that by the end there will be no judgment in heaven, because we will have ascended all of those things where we're trying to interpret and where we were misguided. The other point is, who's doing the judging? I mean, if we are all aspects of God, we're probably the biggest critics of ourselves. We're the ones that are watching all the time. We know every move we make, and the fact that we are all part of God that's why nothing ever escapes God, because we are a clear channel to Him. I believe that we are all waking up to this point where more of us are starting to know that we're all one, and once we get that, then a lot of this craziness will drop down. For the hating will go, the judgment will go, the jealousy will go, all these attributes that are not of the highest being, that God would not really be out there experiencing jealousy of anything, and I don't think He'd be judging either. We're all pretty much sent down here to learn this lesson. I sort of think of Earth as a university where we learn compassion, and we learn how to think beyond ourselves, how to be channels and instruments for God. And how do we grow? How do we grow out of war and conflict, and how do we grow out of feeling like we want this and we want that, and to the point where we can just be happy with who we are and where we are in that present moment, because everything is a gift. It doesn't take any religion to be different from any others to know that it's this present moment that's the gift. And different religions are really just putting different labels on the same thing. The truth is the truth. The truth is God is infinite, And to think that that you are outside of God would be very, very arrogant, to think that you're separate from Him. So how do we move forward and help lift others up? Because when we talk about or think about ascension or going to heaven, I don't believe anybody gets to go until we all get to go. So suppressing anyone is just suppressing yourself, because that's just an aspect of yourself that you don't like very much. We're getting very close, very, very close, and the veils are getting very thin, and almost everybody knows that war does not work, and we're at the end of an era that is not that mindful, and hopefully we'll be moving into a space where everyone will be living in enlightenment, and there will be nothing but pure love and acceptance, and we'll be sharing our gifts and the responsibility and tasks together, and we'll be in great collaboration. There will be no competition, and so I'm grateful to be here and part of it. And I'm grateful to be connected in with the Sudanese community, especially because the Sudanese have been my greatest teachers, and they teach me about the light all the time. And I believe, again, I can never say it enough, but I believe they will be the ones that will lead us to heaven, and it's coming soon. So we're close.
Okay, in this second conversation, we agreed to speak about judgment because it is essential and it is related to our behavior and how we deal with life in general. First of all, I would like to say I benefited much from the center because it comes from it's not directed by religion. It is as if they are speaking about the layer behind religions, the layer where all religions agree, the actual need of an individual. As I already said, the different religions are different because they came at different times and at different environments. So in a way, they represent our adaptation with the things that we don't know with this universe, as the parts that we don't know. And secondly, I would like also to apologize if my language would not help me to express the difficult material and the difficult meanings. And again, third apology goes if I said something that appears to be very confident of it. I'm drawing my confidence from my teacher rather than from myself, because for such issues, when you speak about them, you have to be fully living them before saying them. And I am not in that state, but I'm speaking from the state of my teacher, who's, I'm sure, and I have seen and I have lived with him enough to see that he lives what he's speaking about. Judgment is essential. It has to be there, because once there is right and wrong, then there is judgment. Once there is someone who is so advanced in something and someone who is still behind, there is judgment. And judgment is our center for behaving, for improving ourselves. If we are not judging that something is wrong and that we need to change it or we need to improve it, then how can we proceed? There has to be right and wrong, and we learn from right and wrong. And the whole behavior in religion, the whole purpose of our staying here is to learn. And we learn from the mistakes. It is to learn from our mistakes. And as such, I think judgment is essential. And also this whole world is in harmony. Science is saying so. So the whole sciences are built upon that there is a law of harmony. Things make sense. So whatever happens at the particle level, at the atom level, happens as the universe level. Whatever happens in the part happens for the whole. So whatever happens in an individual judging himself and improving himself also happens for humanity at large, and happens for the history of humanity at large. And the same thing happens for us when we go to the other side after we die. Right now in our world, there is judgment, there is a judge, there are lawyers, there is a court, because that's essential. That's how we keep things, we keep order, and how we proceed forward, and how we ensure that everybody is having his full parts working well. That also applies when we go there. But we have to realize that also that's the law of physics. For every action there is an opposite equal reaction, and for if I pushed anything, then there is a reply for it, and if we did anything wrong, there is a reply for it. Even in the computer, if you did something wrong, it can harm the computer. There might be virus there. That's the law of things. And it is so essential to believe in judgment, because that is how you will change yourself. This is one of the things that I hear in the center, and I cannot find myself in, when they say you are the source, you are the center, believe you are the center, and speak to yourself and correct it. You are the center, and there is no judgment, and you are the mighty God himself. Things like those. I find it very hard to accept that. In the later on we will reach those stages. I believe that in the end, what I want to say is that since there is judgment here, then the same applies for there. But the judgment in itself is something in an evolution, is something in a development. For example, in the past, the judgment used to be more than what is committed. Say, for example, if someone stole something, he will be killed. If said a bad word for the king, they may cut his head off. And then this continued to develop until recently. Things are sharp and exact as they are supposed to be. So that also applies in the later on life. And we know that, for example, people with near-death experience, many of them has not seen judgment except in passing pictures of the events they did, and then they feel. Whenever they did something bad, they feel the bad thing. Whenever they did something good, they feel the good thing, and it's quick. While 2%, while the majority see love and peace and all of that, but like 2%, they have negative experiences. And some of them, they have seen hell and fires and all of that. So it looks like the judgment is also in the evolution process. Like, for example, here we have the law for the rough crimes, for the tough crimes. If you did something that can be proven by the law and something bad for someone else or for the community, there is the law to take this from you. But then there is the social, the communal sort of public law. Say, for example, if someone lied, that's considered bad, but there is no law for that. And then it goes on to develop on the personal discipline of a person himself. For example, a good person can never do something to be forbidden by the law or by the community. But still he has smaller things that he's not happy about. And he might punish himself by just a bad feeling towards it. That, I guess, also, or I think, applies for the life behind that. So there is heaven and there is hell, but that is in an evolution. We don't know the percentage of those who will have hell, maybe 2%, maybe 1%, we don't know. And heaven in itself is not just one heaven, there are many. So in a way, a lower grant or a lower level of heaven can be a punishment for someone when it's compared to a higher level. Anyway, what I would like to say is that there is this judgment. We don't know the scale of it. We are not sure exactly how it goes, but it is essential to the way we behave right now. Because if we do not believe in it, it looks like things are mixed up. In order to understand that there is good and there is bad and there is an advanced thing and there is an unadvanced thing, and then there is an incentive for a person to go forward and to improve and to be closer to God, that means there is a sort of judgment. But denying it altogether defeats the purpose of spirituality at large. Why do we want to improve ourselves? Why do we go to a church or to go to a place? Why do we put some effort to being good? And again, people would say there is no judgment, but within themselves they are practicing judgment. They say they defeat we are God, we are the source, but they are doing bad things, even in their feelings towards some other people. But the ego is there. I can see it in the faces of the people, how they view themselves, how they think about themselves. They would not even endure criticism. Just a little criticism is hard for them to accept. So that's reality. And in order for spirituality to be efficient, this notion of judgment has to be there. That was my opinion.
So, I believe here on earth, we experience heaven and hell and purgatory and the whole works. And it's like this university. We're here to learn. If we were in heaven in the beginning and stayed in heaven and there were harps flying around and we were just flying around by angels, we might be bored. But it's the fact that I always think that our height is equal to our depth. When we fall and we have to work our way back out, then we know the value of it. And I think perhaps what we're speaking about is a human aspect of judgment. But I hope that when we're in heaven and we're in the angelic realm, we don't have to have those lessons, and that we will know right from wrong because we have already passed through that bardo or that channel that we needed to learn the difference between right and wrong. And it's not even something we need in a language or anything anymore. What's dark is dark and what's light is light. We'll know whether we're stepping into darkness or we're in the river of light and headed in the one direction of God and source energy. I still believe that there will be a time when we will evolve out of judgment. I know for myself, I think it's very similar to forgiveness. It's pretty easy to forgive another person. It's very hard to forgive yourself. And I think the most harshest judges that we have on ourselves is we judge ourselves. We're like, oh my God, I should not have done that. That was so stupid. Why did I do that? Where when we get to the other side, and I'm talking about the other side, we'll have to earn our way back up there. It's not like it's just by chance that we're going to get there. I think it's in the Bhagavad Gita, which is that in the Indian Bhagavad Gita? They talk about a play of consciousness, and since we're all one, Arjuna was the one that represented war, and when he made his way back up to heaven, God turns to him and goes, "Nice war, Arjuna, but it's over. The war's over." And I think because he's merged back to source. He's back with God. He's come home. And so in that aspect, I think in enlightenment, and when we are raised to the dimension of heaven, actually heaven on earth, I believe there'll be no jealousy or judgment or any of that. I think it'll all be just pure love and understanding. And understanding we're all one. So, I don't know.
I think this is very useful. What you are saying is useful, and if it's useful to us, it's useful also for whoever is listening to it. But I don't believe that when we die, the judgment ends, because the advancement will not end. It will continue, because there is no end. Because our final goal is to be perfect, is to be God, is to go to the source. And as long as we have something missing, we cannot be perfect. And the missing thing cannot come directly by death. It's after this there is still much to be done. And that's why some who has a real problem has to solve it even after they die. They have to go to some place where this is solved, where this is cured. And also for the good people, it's not done. If we said it is done, then that means they reached a state where there is nothing, where there is no purpose. But there is purpose, and the purpose will continue to happen. And as I said last time, there is no end, because whenever we come to an end, it's a new beginning. And that continues after we go there. But it will be in a very refined form. Exactly like, say for example, as I told you, in the evolution, in Judaism, the Torah says an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth, and whoever has done anything, even for the wounds, the other person has to be wounded. But then that has evolved in Christianity. They say even forgive your enemies, love your enemies, and bless those who hurt you. And it's very open. The forgiveness opens the door for a new sort of judgment, where you do not deal with a bad thing with another bad thing. And that also in Islam is there. The two faces are there. It starts by the crude one, like Judaism, and it is open to in the Quran it says, for those to their enemies, as if he's a very close, very good friend. Quran says it like that. So that means it is open to the judgment is open to an evolution, sort of, and especially to the good people, to those who are good in the sense that they have already went a great deal of the process towards perfection. They are able to achieve a lot of perfection. So that's for them, the scale is different than it is for someone who is so crude and who is so cruel for others, and he has to learn that, and he learns that by feeling the cruelness he does and he causes for others. So that's where judgment comes. Judgment is something within an individual. Even later on, it is something that happens to him due to the knowledge that he gains. Because after death, things are clearer. The issue is clearer. The responsibility is stronger because the vision is clear, and the perfection is done using different ways and different approaches.
So I want to end this with my oldest prayer, and that is the prayer of forgiveness. I would like to pray in this moment to forgive anyone who ever harmed me from the very beginning of time into this present moment. I forgive them now. I release all the energies of the past. I would like to say a prayer now to forgive myself if I ever harmed anyone, consciously or unconsciously, from the beginning of time into this present moment. I forgive myself now. I release the energies of the past. I would like to forgive myself if I ever harmed myself, consciously or unconsciously, from the beginning of time into this present moment. I forgive myself now, and I let go of the energies of the past. May the power and the grace of forgiveness transform my body, my mind, and my spirit, and return me back to a place of innocence. And so it is.